Peppa is a global superstar for children, but beneath that charming personality, there have been moments that definitely made you raise an eyebrow. It's interesting how a character so beloved can sometimes, well, let's just say her behavior wasn't always top-notch role model material. And that's exactly what we're diving into today. Those times when Peppa's actions might have been little out of the box. One of the main victims of Peppa is her best friend, Susie Sheep. In the episode Whistling, Peppa tries to learn how to whistle after she realizes that seemingly everyone but her can do it. So Peppa calls Susie to say she doesn't know how to whistle. At first, Peppa thinks that Susie can't whistle either, but when she realizes Susie does in fact knows how to whistle, we can see the selfish side of Peppa, who first felt happy when she thought her friend couldn't whistle. But when she found out Susie could whistle, and she couldn't, she got so annoyed that she simply hung up on her friend. And we must say this was really rude of Peppa. Maybe it's time for her to learn to be happy for her friend's achievements. Susie isn't the only friend who is the victim of Peppa's bullying. She was also not very nice to her friends. Remember the episode George's Friend, where she argued with Rebecca Rabbit? It's surprising, but it all started because of George. Peppa's little brother was playing with Richard, who is Rebecca's little brother. Then, out of nowhere, George broke Richard's sandcastle. That wasn't very kind of George. So, Richard broke George's sandcastle back, and then both of them started to cry. But guess what Peppa did? She started arguing with Rebecca and said it was all Richard's fault. She said, "It was your brother, his fault."
It was your brother's fault. He broke George's sandcastle.
But really, it was George who started it all. It looks like Peppa needs to learn about who's really to blame. Now let's talk about poor little George. He's Peppa's little brother, and he almost always has to do whatever Peppa wants. Sometimes, it even looks like Peppa likes making George cry. Remember the episode Snow? Here they went to play outside in the snow. They were running and having fun, but then Peppa tripped and fell right into the snow. George, like a little baby, just laughed. But Peppa didn't like that at all. She wanted to get back at him. So, she made a giant snowball, almost as big as George himself, and threw it right at him. Of course, George started to cry. He's still just a baby. That really wasn't a kind thing for Peppa to do. You know who Peppa is mean to a lot? Her own dad. She always teases him, especially about his tummy. It's true he has a big belly, but that doesn't mean it feels good to hear it all the time. Remember when Grandpa Pig built that cool treehouse for Peppa and George? Peppa came up with a secret password to get in, and guess what it was? Daddy's big tummy.
That's right! Daddy's big tummy!
It seems like Peppa really likes to make her dad feel embarrassed in front of everyone. He takes care of her so much, that's really not very nice. And that same treehouse was also part of another mean thing Peppa did. George and his friend Richard were playing in the treehouse with Peppa and her girlfriends. But then, when Pedro and Danny showed up on their bikes, Peppa suddenly decided the treehouse was only for girls to have a tea party. So, she didn't let Pedro and Danny in, and also kicked George and Richard out. She didn't even say please or anything. It looks like Peppa doesn't like to share her toys or her friends. Moving on, remember the episode The Quarrel? In this episode, Susie was playing at Peppa's house, and guess what? Susie won the game 2 times in a row. Peppa did not like that. She thinks she's too good to lose. So, Peppa pointed at Susie and said, "You cheated."
You cheated!
Even though Susie didn't do anything wrong, they both got really mad at each other, and then Susie's mum came to take her home. But they kept arguing outside, saying they wouldn't be friends anymore. Their mums were really surprised. Then, something kind of strange happened. Mummy Pig called Susie's house so they could say sorry. Peppa said she was sorry for saying Susie cheated, even though Susie really did win fair and square. And then, guess what Susie did? She hung up on Peppa. And you know what? We don't blame Susie. Peppa was being really selfish and not a good friend at all. Moving on, in the episode George catches a cold. Just like the name suggests, George catches a cold after playing in the rain. Even though his parents warned him to stay dry, he just couldn't resist. But get this, the weird part isn't even the cold itself. Peppa, his big sister, doesn't seem to care much that her little brother is feeling under the weather. You can totally see George is tired, and not himself, but Peppa just brushes it off like it's no big deal. Later that night, George was sneezing and coughing a lot, and it was loud. Peppa got really annoyed because she thought it would keep her awake. She cared more about her own sleep than her little brother feeling better. She even told George to sneeze quieter, like he could just choose to do that.
George, please don't sneeze so loudly.
Can you imagine telling someone to sneeze quieter? Then she rolled her eyes and said it seemed impossible.
This is impossible.
And the next morning, when George finally feels better and is all happy and bouncy, you'd think Peppa would be glad, right? Nope, she just stares at him, almost annoyed that he's feeling good again after keeping her up. It makes you wonder, if she was so bothered by the nighttime sneezes, why didn't she just go sleep somewhere else? Seriously, Peppa's behavior in this episode? Definitely not the kindest. Peppa was also not very kind to poor Mr. Potato in the episode Mr. Potato Comes to Town. He was telling the kids how to be healthy by eating fruits and vegetables. And as we can see, Mr. Potato is a vegetable too, so Peppa asked if they should eat potatoes. That made Mr. Potato really quiet and surprised. Right after that, the kids started talking about whether Mr. Potato was a normal vegetable or not. Then Peppa said that he wasn't a normal vegetable. That might be true, but it sounded a bit mean. Especially if you looked at Mr. Potato's face. Maybe he was even scared they might try to eat him right there. Poor Daddy Pig gets teased by Peppa a lot. Remember in the treehouse episode, after Granny Pig made cookies? To make Daddy Pig feel a bit silly, Peppa made everyone say the secret password for the treehouse again. Everyone laughed at Daddy Pig, but if you look closely at all the grown-up pigs, they're all kind of round. So, Daddy Pig isn't the only one with a big tummy, but Peppa is the only one who keeps pointing it out. And look at his face. He really didn't like being the joke. It seems like Mummy and Daddy Pig need to teach Peppa to be a little kind to her dad. She's still learning, so there's time for her to be better. Remember the episode School Project? Peppa came home and said she had to build a castle for school. Daddy Pig, who knows a lot about buildings, was excited. He said they could use a cereal box for the walls and cups for the towers. But Peppa just said no, she needed something really good. If you watch closely, you can see Daddy Pig's happy face change to a sad one, like someone just made him feel small. Poor Daddy Pig. It wasn't very nice of Peppa to say that. Okay, so we all know Peppa has her moments, right? Well, get this. Even on her little brother George's birthday, that side of her pops up. Imagine this, it's George's big day, he's super pumped, and he rushes to wake up Peppa. But instead of being happy for him, Peppa gets all grumpy about being woken up early. When their parents remind her that she did the exact same thing on her birthday, her reply is just, wow. She says, but that was my birthday.
That was different. That was my birthday.
Like her special day is automatically a million times more important than George's. Talk about a spoiled moment. Throughout the day, you can tell Peppa's not exactly thrilled about George's dinosaur obsession. The whole party is dinosaur themed, and it's even happening in a museum full of giant dinosaur skeletons. Peppa's not exactly jumping for joy, but here's a little twist. In the end, Peppa does wish George a happy birthday. And get this, she even draws him a dinosaur. At first, she wanted to draw a flower, but she changed her mind. As the party goes on, she actually starts to enjoy herself, proving that even though she's got a strong personality, she really does care about George being happy on his special day.
George, I've made you a birthday card.
So, these were some of the moments where Peppa was really mean. And as always, we'll see you all in the next video.